Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now, I know this is basically a daily occurrence and I say it pretty much every single day, but don't blame me, I'm just the messenger. The left is once again having a massive frickin' meltdown. Of course, this time over Trump's meeting with Zelenskyy at the White House, acting like it was the most disgraceful thing to ever happen to America and in the Oval Office. And it's not just the terminally online Reddit losers that are hyperventilating over this. It seems like every single leftoid and even some gullible normies are absolutely seething over this encounter, not to mention the Europeans, and especially the European politicians that are practically diving over each other to see who can kiss Zelensky's behind the hardest. The media is trying to treat this like, again, it's the beginning of the end for Donald Trump, a catastrophic diplomatic failure on his end, but that notion is completely absurd. And of course, the leftist media is completely full of it. There's yet again another total double standard exposed here. There's one standard for Democrat presidents and of course another standard for Donald Trump and any Republican, but especially Donald Trump. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first start off with this story that just dropped, which exposes the obvious hypocrisy and total double standard. It turns out that just a couple years ago, Joe Biden lost his temper at Zelenskyy as well.
NBC News has new exclusive reporting about a phone call that happened between President Biden and the Ukrainian president back in June. What do we know about that conversation, Courtney?
Yeah, that's right, Kate. So in this conversation, President Biden called President Zelenskyy to tell him about a roughly $1 billion package of additional equipment and weapons for the Ukrainian military coming from the United States. During the course of the call, President Zelenskyy continued, according to a number of officials who we spoke with who are familiar with the call, President Zelenskyy continued to talk about the additional equipment and weapons and support that he and his military needed. According to these officials, they said that President Biden finally just got frustrated and lost his temper and told President Zelenskyy, look, you could be a little bit more grateful. The reason that this story is interesting to us and is something that we're reporting on and officials were speaking to us about is because it shows that all these months ago, President Biden already realized that there was going to be a point where the American people, members of Congress, where people would start potentially pushing back on all these billions and billions of dollars of aid and equipment that the U.S. has been providing to Ukraine. And he knew that the narrative out there needed to be that the Ukrainian people and President Zelenskyy were grateful for it if the support was going to continue at that same level, Kate.
But back then, of course, the media barely covered it. But now that Donald Trump stands his ground and refuses to let Zelenskyy pull the same sob story routine, suddenly it's a global crisis, right? Suddenly it's the greatest setback that America has ever experienced on the world stage. Even though likely this story is going to be forgotten in like 2 weeks. Give me a freaking break, and you know what this is telling me? Maybe the issue with this, let's call it diplomatic breakdown, isn't Donald Trump, but rather it's Zelenskyy. And you know that might be the case when Lindsey Graham is now saying that he should step down. Might as well insert this clip here. I was supposed to play it yesterday on one of the videos I recorded, but we made a little editing mistake on our side, so let's just play it here.
What I think? Complete, utter disaster. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is vitally important. But can Zelenskyy do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know. I told Zelenskyy, we'll talk about security guarantees. We'll talk about ceasefires and how the war ends. This is a process. You have a new relationship with America, a $500 billion, $500 billion deal that President Trump is proud of, that gives us an interest worth defending. Let's talk about the positive. But he was terrible at Munich, Zelenskyy, and I think he has made it almost impossible to sell to the American people that he's a good investment.
Do you think President Zelenskyy needs to resign to resume these peace talks?
He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
Yeah, when the biggest war hawk in Washington is telling you to resign, I think it's pretty much over. This is the same guy who would feed his own mother to sharks if it meant starting another endless war in the Middle East, and even he's tapping out. But of course, the media doesn't want to focus on any of that. No, it's just Trump, 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 right? Trump, Russia, here we go again. Instead of being fair, balanced, neutral, looking at both sides, providing a different perspective, it's all Donald Trump's fault, and let's just go to the next conspiracy theory, right? Which of course is what the left is best at, and they're already cooking up their next conspiracy theory, trying to claim that Trump set Zelenskyy up. Oh, please.
Obviously, it's a very sad day and an embarrassment for the United States on the world stage. But I think there's no question that this was a setup. You heard Donald Trump say at the end of that clip you played, this is great television. This was a setup. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was compelled to agree to a horrible deal that would have sent Ukraine's minerals to the United States without any concrete security guarantees. And yet, because he was trying to improve a relationship with Donald Trump, he came to Washington, he came to the Oval Office and sat down for a meeting, hat in hand. And soon after he got there, the vice president of the United States lit into him and started a confrontation. I can tell you that the vice president or the secretary of state or anybody else, they don't jump in, hijack a conversation without the express blessing of the president of the United States. So J.D. Vance did that deliberately. Donald Trump knew what he was going to do. And I think, as he said at the end, because he can't, help himself, this was a setup for the cameras. It was a play to his base. But above all, it was a play to Vladimir Putin, to show fealty to Vladimir Putin, and to try to humiliate Zelenskyy. It's not about gratitude. It was an effort to humiliate him, to scuttle the U.S.-Ukraine relationship so that Trump no longer feels any obligation to provide support, and to hand U.S. interests and Ukraine and potentially Europe to Putin on a silver platter.
Give me a frickin' break. Caroline Leavitt actually responded to this ridiculous claim.
Susan Rice and others tonight have said that this was an ambush, a setup, that this was the plan all along for Vance and Trump to go at him and create this drama.
That's absolutely not true. President Trump was excited about this economic agreement. And it was President Zelenskyy, if you roll the tape, who actually antagonized the vice president in front of the cameras and picked a fight with him. And as President Trump said, I think it was great that the cameras were rolling, because the American people and the entire world got to see what President Trump and his team have been dealing with behind closed doors in the negotiations with the Ukrainians. They've been, again, incredibly hard-headed, and all President Trump wants is peace. And in order to negotiate peace, both sides have to come to the table, both sides have to talk, and both sides in a good deal usually walk away a little unhappy. President Zelenskyy fails to recognize that. And again, this is not the previous administration. Joe Biden is no longer in that Oval Office. We are no longer going to just write blank checks to a war very far away without real, lasting peace.
And I think she's totally right, and it's obvious. The left is trying to spin this thing. Zelenskyy walked into that room rolling his eyes, huffing and puffing like a petulant child, and refusing to even consider peace talks. And he was there to sign an economic deal, right? A mineral rights deal. Well, obviously the whole thing frickin' derailed. You can't exactly sign an economic minerals deal if there's no peace deal on the table. And so that's obviously what Trump is trying to get to. But according to the media, he's always the bad guy. And it's funny how things flip so quickly. When he was first elected back in 2016, the mainstream media went on forever, claiming that he was going to destabilize the world, walk us into World War III.
We were on the brink of World War III because Donald Trump took the worst possible option given to him in a slideshow.
In this country, we have begun to overestimate the dangers of impeachment and underestimate the dangers of a deranged president retaining control over a nuclear hyperpower.
We cannot wait around while Donald Trump is in control of the nuclear weapon.
Your objection to potentially going into World War III cannot be procedural.
The biggest danger of the Trump presidency is that we are always just a Trump whim away from nuclear war.
But now that Trump is actively trying to end the war, now that he's trying to bring people together and get Zelenskyy out of his war costume and into a suit, ready for negotiation, ready for peace, well, all of a sudden he's the schizo, right? He's the bad guy. Which one is it? Pick a frickin' side. Is he the guy who's gonna walk us into World War III, or is he the guy who's trying to end World War III? Because obviously it can't have it both ways. And probably more obviously, what this proves is that the media doesn't care about the facts. The media doesn't care about peace, they don't care about regular people, they don't care about death, destruction, and chaos. They only care about the narrative, and the narrative is that Donald Trump is wrong no matter what he does, and anyone pushing the globalist agenda, like globalist puppet Zelenskyy, well, he's always the hero on the cover of Vogue magazine and whatnot, right? Oh, the bravery. It's also totally cynical, and I don't know how people are falling for it. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.